Alvick, members of the Monroe Township Board of Education. The Monroe Township Board of Education organization meeting is now called to order. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted December 29th, 2017 at all schools, the Home News Tribune, Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality. This is a unique Board of Education meeting where it begins without a board president as chair. And as board secretary, it is my role to chair the meeting until such time as the successful nomination process for president is completed. Would you please join me first in a pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving right along on the agenda, item number 4, the election results are posted and there's copies up front at the table. The results have been sent to all of the Board of Education members and copies are available up front. The election results have been confirmed and certified by the County Clerk of Elections. It is now my duty and privilege to administer the oath of office to the following individuals who are hereby requested to join me at the front table. Mrs. Jill DeMayo, Mrs. Kathy Polapanowicz, Mr. Steve Ryback, Mr. Paul Rutsky.
Precautionary, right?
Yeah, I'm getting over it again. I was sick of a break again.
Everybody have theirs? Yes, sir. Okay, please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability. So help me God. I do solemnly swear or affirm and declare that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4.4-1. And that I am not disqualified to hold office due to a conviction of crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A:12-1. So help me God. Okay, congratulations.
May I?
Thanks. Thanks. We can return to your seats. Thank you.
did that.
Okay, we will move to number 7 on the agenda, election of a board president. I will open the nominating process at this time. Is there a nomination for anyone to make for board president?
Mr. Gorski, can I just ask, we didn't do roll call attendance. We didn't do number 6.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. In my haste, I skipped number 6. So hold the nomination process and we will take a roll call. Mrs. Arminio.
Here.
Mr. Braverman. Mr. Chiarella.
Here.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Here.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Here.
Mrs. Lang.
Here.
Mrs. Carino.
Here.
Mr. Ryback.
Here.
Mr. Russo. Mr. Rutsky.
Here.
We have a quorum present this evening. Thank you, Mrs. Lang. Okay, we will once again open the nominating process for board president. Okay. Okay. Are there any other nominations for president?
I nominate Michelle Arminio.
Is there a second? Without a second, then we will have a roll call for president, seeing that there are no more nominations for president. Beg your pardon? You'll second Mrs. Arminio's. Okay. So we have 2 nominations for president, Kathy Koloponowicz and Michelle Arminio. Are there any other nominations for president? Okay, seeing none. Nominee number 1 was Kathy Koloponowicz. We'll take a roll call, and an affirmative vote is a vote for that person for president. And nominee number 1 again is Kathy Koloponowicz. Mrs. Arminio.
No.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mrs. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
No.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
And Mr. Rutsky.
No.
Nominee number 1, Kathy Koloponowicz, has 5 yeses. Nominee number 2 is Michelle Arminio. Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
No.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
No.
Mrs. Lang.
No.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
I'll abstain.
And Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
That's 4 yes and 1 abstention, and 3 noes for Mrs. Arminio. Mrs. Koloponowicz has been elected board president. Congratulations, Mrs. Koloponowicz. I will surrender the chair to Mrs. Koloponowicz after closing the nominating process for board president. Thank you. Excuse me.
Hey Joe, you got 2 females.
Okay.
thank you for the support of the board. This is going to be a very interesting year. We have an awful lot to accomplish. We need a successful conclusion to the MTEA negotiations as soon as possible. We need to promote and pass the referendum for a middle school, and we need to do a superintendent search. So at this time, we'll have the election for the board vice president. So I will open the floor for nominations for the position of Vice President of the Board of Education. Mr. Chiarella?
I'm going to nominate Michelle Arminio.
Okay. Second by Ms. Carino.
I nominate Steve Ryback.
Is there a second by Jill DeMayo?
So noted.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we need a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then we will have a roll call for the position of Vice President of the Board of Education.
Okay. Nominee number 1 is Mrs. Arminio. Once again, an affirmative vote is yes for Michelle Arminio for Board Vice President. Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
No.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
No.
Mrs. Lang.
No.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback. And Mr. Rutsky.
No.
3 affirmative votes. Second nominee is Steve Ryback. Mrs. Arminio.
No.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mrs. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
No.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
And Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Madam Board President, nominee 2, Steve Ryback, has been elected Board Vice President. Congratulations, Mr. Ryback.
Congratulations, Steve. Would you like to make any comments or?
Well, I certainly would. I'd like to congratulate all of you here because it's really a pleasure working with all of you. And I appreciate the public support, as I said last month in my reelection. And I know we have, as you said, Madam President, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and I know that this board will successfully achieve all its goals. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we will go to number 9, the Code of Ethics. And for the public, all the board members have received a copy of the Code of Ethics for Board of Education members, and we are required to sign an acknowledgement that we have received a copy of the Code of Ethics and that we have read a copy of the Code of Ethics. And I don't think we have to vote on that, but when you get a chance, please make sure that your returned and signed copy gets to Mr. Gorski as soon as possible. Okay. So number 10, the suspension of policy bylaw. It is recommended that the Board of Education suspend the operation of policy bylaw 0164 to permit the board to conduct only one public forum at this evening's public meeting. I need to have a motion and a second.
Second.
Lang, second by Ms. Arminio. Comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, roll call. Do you want to just do a?
That's what I was planning, but that's okay. We could do a roll call.
I checked last year.
Roll call for suspension of bylaw to have one public forum where any comment is welcome. Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mrs. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
And Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion to suspend bylaw has passed.
Okay, then we will go to public forum. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and we are adhering to our 4-minute time limit.
Anthony Prezioso, 8 Equestrian Way.
We just passed the Code of Ethics, and I would like to mention from the last time I was here at the board meeting that I'm afraid that the Code of Ethics sometimes on the board doesn't work out so well. I had mentioned to you that cronyism, now that we're going to have a new superintendent, will be back into the board like it used to be. And I had mentioned to you that I believe that Dory Alvidge will be superintendent because of the way the board is set up. I hope the public takes notice of this. And it's not a good thing to have cronyism and nepotism back on the board, and that's what's been happening. We got rid of it, and I have a feeling it's coming back. So, like I said to the public, Dory Alvidge will be superintendent, and if I'm wrong, I'll apologize. But I honestly believe cronyism is back on the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Drive. I just wanted to find out if the land deal with the township has been settled yet for the new middle school?
We received a letter on, I believe it was the 21st, and I do not have it with me. I meant to bring it. I don't know if you have a copy of the letter, where they have received the land, and it will be turned over to the Board of Education. The township has not had a meeting to formally do that as of, they're having a reorg meeting tonight, but as of the 21st, I don't believe they've had a meeting, but through the letter that I received, we have gotten the land.
So the purchase is complete with the township?
They are still negotiating the purchase price. Yes.
May I add some clarification to that?
Sure.
Because I was the recipient of the letter. The letter that we have received indicated that the township has condemned the property, meaning that it is now owned by the Township of Monroe, and that the price of the land between the former owner and the township is still being negotiated, and it's heading toward an amicable settlement from communications coming from the township. And that both parties have asked for a extension of time before the court comes in and determines the price. The township has also put an amount of money in escrow, and the township has also passed a resolution expressing their intent to transfer the land to the Board of Education when appropriate.
Why would they condemn the land?
Because negotiations, again, this would have to be asked to the township because it was an action of theirs. You should probably go to a council meeting and ask for that answer.
You don't know why they condemn the land? I'm just confused why. So was it not a amicable negotiation for the purchase price? It doesn't sound like, it sounds almost like we went in and took it by eminent domain.
Eminent domain was enforced, and the land was condemned, and negotiations are continuing to determine the price, and they are proceeding amicably according to information from the township.
And this board is okay with that, coming in and taking property by eminent domain? That's terrible. You selected that piece of property, and you asked the township to do that. That is absolutely disgraceful.
We did not ask the township.
Yes, you did. We sat here at a meeting, and we were told by Mr. Gorski that him and Mr. Tague went on Google Maps and selected that piece of property.
That is
And
true.
that we've been hearing every month that we were getting that land whatever cost.
We never, in fact, I think every one of us here at past meetings had said we did not believe in taking that land by eminent domain. The Board of Education was not involved.
You asked for that piece of property, and you went to the town and you asked them to take it at whatever cost, and that is exactly what they did. Yes, it is this board's fault that that happened, absolutely. And I would like to just reiterate what Mr. Prezioso said. I 110% agree with him. What is going on here. And yes, nepotism was gone, and it is back, and we do see that. The public does see what's going on, and I think it's very unfortunate what happened this past year with Dr. Kozak, and I wish you well, and I think it's absolutely horrendous what happened in this district, and it's just going down, and it's very sad to see as a parent.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we will close the public forum, and we need a motion to approve the organizational items A, B, C, and D.
So moved.
I have,
Mr. Ryback? Oh, Mrs. Lang?
I have a question about meeting dates.
Well, you can ask the question after we
Gotcha.
motion and second.
Okay, thank you.
So Mr. Ryback made a motion, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Lang, Mrs. Lang. So now you have a question?
I happened to notice when I was going through the meeting dates for the upcoming year, that the November meeting is Wednesday, November 21st, and Thanksgiving is November 22nd.
We can have turkey that night.
Yeah, and so I wasn't sure if that was something that should be reconsidered, being the night before Thanksgiving.
Probably. I think we'll probably have to look at that again. So we can approve these tentatively? Because some of them changed during the year anyway.
Yes, we can certainly approve the list as submitted and then revise that date if the board wishes at the next meeting. And if anything like that is identified in the future, by all means, give me a call ahead of time, and then I could have the correction run by the board president and presented for the
Kind of
meeting.
last minute that I saw it, sorry.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Arminio?
On, is this still under,
12, A, B, C, and D.
okay, nope, I'll wait until 14. Thank you.
So we need a
Roll.
roll call on this.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella. Yes. Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolponowicz.
Yes.
Mrs. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
And Mr. Rutsky. Madam Board President, item 12, A, B, and C, D has passed.
Thank you. Number 13 is student board members' reports, but they're home doing their homework before it gets to be such a bad weather day tomorrow. So we will go with Dr. Kozak's superintendent's report, which is really long.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, it's not too long tonight. There's just two items on my report tonight, and that is to ask the board to approve items A and B. And I would just like to provide a little explanation to those two items, since they're somewhat unusual, I guess. The first item is Mr. Gorski as the school safety specialist for the district, and that is a recent state mandate that is requiring a certificated staff member to be designated as the school safety specialist. Being that Mr. Pirro, although a retired police officer, doesn't count, I guess, as a certificated staff officer, and being that security falls under Mr. Gorski's jurisdiction, I guess, for lack of a better term, he put his name up to be the school security specialist. With that, there'll be a lot of trainings involved and other things, and I would imagine that the state will allow a designee to attend, and that I would think that Mr. Pirro, it would be imperative for him to attend those safety trainings as the director of our security. Item B is in reference to a HIB appeal that was brought up at the December, I believe it was the 13th meeting. And that is just, that is giving the board the opportunity to either affirm the original decision. Of course, you could reject it or modify it as well. So there are the two items that are on my report, and with that,
Yeah, a motion to accept the superintendent's report. Mr. Chiarella, second by Mr. Ryback. Any comments or questions? I think Dr. Kozak answered most of them.
But
Michelle.
I do have that. On A, it just seems to me that Mr. Gorski has so many things on his plate that yet another responsibility, he'll never get home at night, or never be able to wake up in the morning to get here. Does it require that it be the board secretary? He said certificate certificated, so who
Certificated.
else could it be?
Yeah, so it could be a principal, it could be Dr. Albick, it could be Mr. Gorski, it could be me, it could be anybody that's certificated.
And what does it entail? And Mr. Gorski, I thank you for volunteering. Apparently, no one else did. But
Yeah.
I do think it might be just, I mean, there's a lot going on, and you have a very important a job for our new referendum and all that's going on with the finances. So I'm just wondering if we could relieve Mr. Gorski of some of that responsibility, and is there somebody else that could get qualified?
Well, being that this is fairly new, coming from the state, there really hasn't been any discussion among any of the other administrators. The one thing that I would caution is that were it to be a principal, that person's responsible for a particular building. And I think at this level, it might be good to have somebody who has district-wide approval. And again, without having seen all the trainings coming up, I would imagine that Mr. Gorski would designate Mr. Pete, to Mr. Pirro, to attend the trainings and to really oversee that. But certainly,
Sure.
Yeah, it was last-minute notification from the state. It had to be in place by January 17th, 2018, and the requirements for the position are you have to hold an administrative certificate.
Okay.
Most of the security directors in the state do not hold an administrative certificate. So there's some confusion that I learned tonight at the state level about proposed changes to this to remove that certificate requirement. But as of now, we don't have that confirmation. If that should happen in the future, certainly I would recommend to the superintendent that Pete Pirro, the current security director, be appointed for that position.
Yeah.
There is going to be a lot of training required. As it stands now, the person with the title would be required to attend these trainings. I would certainly bring Mr. Pirro as it currently stands with me. And as Dr. Kozak said, on the organization chart, I am at the hierarchy of school security staff, so that's why I volunteered for the position, but I appreciate your comments.
I mean, but it just, it's a lot for one person to do. I mean, everything, all of your other qualifications and certificates and a lot of the oversight that you have, I just think that if the state changes it, we should be open in the future to, relieving you of some of that responsibility. But, okay, so it's mandated now, and we have to make that decision by January 17th. Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Anyone else? Comments? Questions? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarello.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Mrs. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Carino.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
And Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Madam Board President, Superintendent report passes for those two items.
Okay, thank you. So we will go to the board president's report. I'm going to keep mine short because I'm sure we want to go home where it's nice and warm. Committee preference lists have been handed out this evening. If we can have them back to Mr. Gorski by no later than Monday, January 8th, then I'll be able to work on them next week, and then we'll be able to continue our regular committee meeting schedule the week before the board meetings. And that's my report. Any other business from any member of the Board of Education? Mr. Ryder?
I have something I'd like to share. Today, I received an email from Ray Pinney asking me to serve on the Jersey School Board's Legislative Committee, where I would be one of two board members representing the Legislative District 14. I'm very excited about that because that gives us just another means of getting our message out as far as the state and legislation.
That's a great honor for you and
Thank
for
you, Liz.
Monroe, because we will have a voice where we need it.
Thank you.
And two in that legislative district, two members, this is phenomenal, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And thank you for accepting.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So I believe we have a closed session resolution on the agenda this evening. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subject: harassment, intimidation, bullying. Following closed session, action may be taken. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Is there a motion?
I motion.
Second.
Mrs. Lang, second by Mr. Ryback. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That's what I have, right. It should take us no longer than 5 minutes to get through this. Okay.
So tomorrow we'll get a warm tropical air and there won't be any snow.
Holy wish. You know what? I'll take it.
Is the whole thing, is it supposed to start tonight?
Yeah,
Overnight?
like
And
around
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
o'clock.
there's-
And go through tomorrow. And the wind is the other part. The wind gusts are supposed to be up to, 20, 30 miles, whatever, but
That's
it's
gonna
going
make
to
it
create
brutal, too.
the icy conditions of driving.
Would they say a snow bomb?
Snow
I
bomb.
never heard
Well,
of a snow bomb before.
I can only imagine means it just like sits in place and just keeps dropping, but they're only talking a couple
I
of
know the Weather Channel on the southern states, like
They upped it?
some of the places down, well, like you said,
My
right?
mom
Ten-
lives in Tallahassee. They got snow today.
I saw that. My friend, my girlfriend is
South Carolina, yeah.
Yeah.
there.
Okay, 8 to 12. Ken just updated us.
No, I
8
thought
to
it-
12.
Democrat, I'm
That's what my $4.99 app says.
Weather bug?
Okay, at this time, we will move back into a public session. Is there any other comments from or questions from the Board of Education? Michelle?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Before
I'm thinking snow. Okay, yes, the referendum is coming up on March 13th.
Yes.
A lot of people, may be unaware of that because it's a special election. Is it going through the Middlesex County Board of Elections, or are we running it ourselves? And how do people get absentee ballots if they so choose?
Madam President, can I answer?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the question. Excellent question. Couple of things. It is going, this election on March 13th, 2018, did I say March 13th, right? 2018, is going through the county, Middlesex County Board of Elections, which means that our polling will only be open until 8 p.m. that night, 7 a.m. through 8 p.m., not 9 p.m. And that's significant for us because we have a lot of parents that work, and I think many that work in the city, and by the time they get back, they might be getting home, so it might be it might be very important for them to vote maybe on the way home from work rather than going home, having dinner, and say they'll go out later, so they don't miss it. Absentee ballots can be requested. We have all that information on our website, on the district website. We have a whole separate section. They can also be requested through the county. The League of Women Voters is working very hard with the voter registration drive. They've been doing that since the summertime, really, for all kinds of elections. And they'll hopefully be at most of our public meetings, which, again, are on our website. The public meetings start next week. We have a meeting every single week at either one of our schools or the township library, the rec center one night, right? The rec center one night. But leading right up to March 13th. And we are also, when I say we, I'm talking about some of the board members, Dr. Alvick, Mr. Gorski, and myself, will be going to some of our adult communities. We've gone to some already, and we're trying to get out to every adult community between now and March. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is that people vote. These type of elections can be decided, sometimes with 1 or 2 votes. So it's so important. We certainly can't tell people how to vote, but we can encourage them to vote.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then our next scheduled Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, January 24th, 2018, 7 o'clock PM at the Monroe Township High School. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Ryback?
Second.
Ms. Sarminio? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then the meeting is adjourned.
Okay.